Hi, welcome to this week's edition of the Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Ireland's 16-all draw against Wales, the other opening rounds of the Six Nations Championship. Look forward to the matches next weekend and also a couple of the Pro 12 games which are happening at the weekend too. So boys, 16-all draw. We happy or disappointed with that result?
Yes.
Definitely. I would have bitten your hand off. I know you were feeling that we might have won, but
I'm still happy with the result.
I certainly wasn't. But I would have bit your hand off at the elbow for a draw before kick-off. Having said that, at 30 minutes in, when we were 13 points up, I would have gone, what? We're only getting a draw? And then at 6 minutes to go, when we were 3 points behind for the first time in the game, I would have gone, yes, I'll have that draw you were offering earlier.
So mixed emotions then, John.
So very mixed, but I think it suits us. Considering the team we had out, etc. I think it's an excellent result, and I'm happy with it.
You know, my thinking that we'd win was based in the main part on my faith in the coach.
But how could we ever doubt it?
Yeah.
But whatever about us, there was plenty of other people who were strongly criticising them, and using any opportunity now because it fits the narrative. They've had 2 years and they've kind of really forgotten about the fantastic results he's had.
When you keep winning,
Yeah,
that's the thing. When you keep winning championships and stuff, I think when we went away to Claremont in his first year with a really patched up team and came away with a result that suited us, that's when I realised that it doesn't matter what you throw in front of this guy, he's going to think his way out of it, and that's what he did again. And the kind of the calls that people were unsure about are the ones that worked out. The calls that maybe people were less uncomfortable with maybe were the ones, if any did, were the ones that were less successful to a certain extent. Maybe White didn't go as well as we expected, for example. But it was overall a good performance, overall a good result. It's disappointing that we scored so few points in the second half. Reminiscent of our of Leinster to a certain extent. But you just can't complain with the performances. You can't complain with the result. You can't complain about the performances either.
No.
I mean, okay, there were one or two guys. Well, one or two guys who mightn't be happy with how they played themselves. But overall, the performances were universally excellent.
But it's just we
had to be.
We started off like
a
bat out of hell. Like even Toner was putting in huge hits. He was putting himself around. Later on in the match, McCarthy was really, really standing up in defence. McGrath again, absolutely fantastic in defence. Heaslip, huge carries. Similarly,
our back row,
like the back row,
someone
Dave did.
There was a lot to.
I'm not slagging him, but someone
I had questions about it, and I thought he was superb. I thought he really, really was. And what's more,
but even from the start, just even him singing the national anthem, it reminded me of Strauss a few years ago.
I love
to
read the media on Monday. You think he was the only person who wasn't from Ireland who ever learned the national anthem.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway,
still,
I thought he was absolutely superb. And the thing that I really liked about it was how well balanced the back row looked. I mean, and conversely, Wales, even though they had excellent players, like genuinely excellent, genuinely world class players,
Warburton was did
not look as well balanced as our back row, and a huge amount of that has to go down to a guy playing out of position. Stander was playing out of position in his first international match. He deserves huge credit for his performance.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Tipperich is a player I really like in general, but he was fairly quiet. I like the fact that he's another back. He's a link player like good old Keith Gleeson. He's that kind of a number 7, and he's also very good in the deck. But himself and Warburton
just didn't work.
Just didn't seem to, be in it at all. Hardly.
By playing Standler in that position, it kind of freed up Heaslip a little bit.
Yeah.
And
he was
when we see O'Brien playing, he seems to be going for more of sort of the fetcher position. Even though a few years ago, when he was running at the ball at pace, he was
Heaslip was doing the fetching for him as well at that point.
He's one of those guys who will.
He works in wherever he needs.
Whatever the coach needs it, the guy, whatever gap you have in your number 8 in your back row skill set, Heaslip will fill it.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
He's doing a lot of this. He seems to have been doing it for a good while, trying to step people when he's in possession of the ball. And he's kind of taking the contact on his own terms as part of what he's doing. But sometimes you just wish he'd just run at them, you know, because he did it a couple of times in that game and made a bit of yardage, you know. Having said that, when you compare him to someone like Jamie Roberts, who that's all he does, he just runs at people. He's, you know, it's his whole game pretty much, and it's what he's used for by the coaching as well. I think for club and country, depending on which club he's in at a given time. But you know, Heaslip, when he had Stander to do all that kind of donkey work, he really excelled. He really looked good, and with O'Brien coming fit next week, that's going to be a fearsome back row.
Yeah.
And Picamole's out as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, I don't necessarily think that will limit France. I think Picamoles is very, very good at playing the kind of game that...
just in terms of heft.
Yeah, at playing a tight game. I don't think that Novez wants to play a tight game. Now, I don't think he's very good at playing a wide game. But in terms of the French team, I don't think they're going to be good at playing a wide game. But I think that the back row without Picamoles would be better suited to that, actually.
I just think
'Cause
they'll
he
be
does
lacking a bit of bulk.
He does tend to play in a channel either side of the breakdown that's quite narrow, that's all.
Well, he's kind of. We've seen that he's improved since the World Cup. When you could see it in his face, he got really fit and
Yeah, he did lose an
lean
awful lot of
and,
weight, yeah. A lot of,
Uh,
well, not weight as such. It's not like he was going to slim or anything. He lost an awful lot of... he got leaner.
he trimmed down, yeah. So I don't know. I think they look a little bit lightweight in the back row without him. You know, especially up against the likes of Stander, Heaslip, and O'Brien. Like that's, that's fearsome, you know. And it's not only fearsome, but they can do the groundhog.
Yeah.
They can do
But
do
like,
it
it
all.
worked.
you know.
And the proof of the pudding was that Wales didn't make any line breaks.
No,
Mhm.
no,
You know,
no.
we'd
Zero.
five. So, like, you know, we lost Les Kiss. Farrell hasn't come in.
Yeah.
So there was that kind of gap. Now it's clearly Joe Schmidt.
You're forgetting about that caravan and the walkie-talkies, the binoculars.
But like Schmidt does obviously run a good ship when it comes to defence, and it proved it on Sunday.
It was good enough to win 2 European Cups, so you know it's going to be good enough to at this level. So
We should hope so.
Yeah.
However, that draw does play into England's hands above all else. They've got us and Wales at home.
They were
And
great against Scotland.
yeah, I'm just saying it's there for them. I'm not saying they're going to do it.
Like they've had four training sessions with their coach, and they're probably only going to have a couple more this week.
Well,
really,
that's why they're not changing so much. You know, they're playing. They're not playing a hugely different game at this stage.
there wasn't a huge amount that needed doing with that England team. I mean, the last 2 years they played the same number of games as us in the Six Nations and won the same number of games as us and lost the same number of games as us in the Six Nations. You know, it was tweaking that was needed to take them to a championship last year, for example.
Yeah.
So, you know, I didn't think a whole lot was going to change, to be honest, because there wasn't a huge amount wrong.
Well, before the weekend's games, I thought it was there for Wales because they had the settled coach. They had the but Warren Ball seemed to be while we got a little bit more expansive than we were in the World Cup. They are still doing the crash it up stuff and not much else.
And you know what they were very poor at? Like they had a 3-1. When
they blew a few overlaps. Yeah.
When Trimble made that fantastic hit in the first five, they had a 3-1. Like any team that has that. Now they had a second row that got caught in possession.
Both second rows. Yeah.
But
They tried very hard to get around the outside of us without putting in the groundwork that you need to get around the outside of a team, which meant that the likes of Earls, who made a number of hits as well, and Trimble, were able to make those big defensive reads. But fair play to them for doing it, but the Welsh hadn't done enough to commit them to not being able to do it.
Yeah, but they still had overlaps that they butchered or that they went. The winger I saw a couple of times with I think it was Tom James, and he went inside.
You would expect it. You would expect an international team to put them away, but also you got to guess
George
France
North
are
did it as
gonna
well.
be able to convert those 3-1s. You know,
that's
a scary thing.
bit of a scary
But we're
one.
still
yeah.
allowing teams. We were lucky against Wales, but sometimes your luck might run out.
We shall see. France looked shockingly bad defence, but that may tighten up in the week, you know, because when you're that bad in defence, it's going to be the first thing you're going to be looking at, unless Guy Novez is totally off on the bleeding digital edge with a smoke in his go.
From what Bernard Jackman was saying today on Twitter, Fiku wasn't taking part in training today, and Mer was in there, and he'll stiffen things up considerably.
Yeah.
So
Well, we shall see. But not to get too far ahead of ourselves, our own game. It's very hard to find anyone really who you could say had a bad game. You've picked out White already. Outside of that, I wouldn't say Zebo.
No, I thought he was poor.
Zebo was very poor.
I thought he mixed the good and the bad.
He did two things
what he
good,
did.
John. He did two breaks. The first one in the first few minutes, he failed to see
An
that
overlap.
Sexton was on his inside and I think it was Earls was on his outside.
Mhm.
Like he failed to see that he died with the ball. He made another good break through the middle in the second half. But if you go back and you think of
Positionally,
if you think of the first of their try off the scrum, that led to Trimble, who's not the fastest, covering back with the ball.
no, it was very noticeable how
But
slow he was.
what Zebo did was Zebo hung him out to dry because he was in a
Ambled.
shocking
He ambled it back.
position. He didn't give him an option. He gave him no out whatsoever. He failed to which is meat and drink for Rob Kearney. He failed. There was one against Bigger, and there was another one that Liam Williams completely skinned him on.
Mm-hmm.
He
I saw
kicked the
that.
ball straight in touch, and obviously these things can happen.
That one with Liam
But-
Williams, he could still be heading down the N11 for all we know.
I think
But there are so many. He does so many good things, but he also does a huge and more not so good things. And if everyone is fit, that's why Joe Schmidt doesn't pick him in the team.
I came from the game saying that I thought he didn't have a good game. When I watched it back, I saw a lot more of the good stuff that he did as well. What I think his problem is if you want to express it in one word, is focus. I think he just drifts off.
Yeah.
He's
Literally.
an international fullback, John.
I know. I'm
Do
not.
you know,
No,
that's
I-
grand for.
I think that John is right in terms of, he does lose focus. I mean, for example, any player who's switched on is breaking their balls to get back in position to give Trimble an angle for a pass in that position.
And that's why
And
his
but he wasn't.
positioning.
If you notice him, he's
not good.
parallel with Trimble all the way back, and he's ambling back. He's going for what him is ambling back when you consider what his top speed is. Now that's true. His problem is lacking focus. The other side of that is this is international rugby. There's the time for him to practice or learn on the job is gone. He should be focused the moment he
Mm-hmm. I
steps out.
totally
on that
agree.
pitch.
Yeah, but
So yes, he has the ability. No, he's not applying it.
But take an extreme example, Carlos Spencer. There's a guy who was, very unpredictable, and the stuff that he did that was so good was balanced by the stuff that he did that was so bad.
But balanced, you said balanced. I named.
You
I
don't
ga-
think it's balanced, is it?
Well, I gave about 6 examples of things that he did poorly and 2 examples of what he did right. There's no balance there. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I think he did a lot more than you're giving him credit
Okay.
for. In fairness, but it is that kind of a balance. It's kind of extremely good or extremely bad. Whereas Rob Kearney is a lot more solid.
And the thing to
His
remember
positioning
about
is a lot
But
better.
if you
Carlos
go-
Spencer is one of the main reasons why Andrew Mertens has 75 caps.
Well,
And
there you go.
And if you go back, say, since rugby turned pro, there's been probably 3 Irish fullbacks, that have made all the caps. There was, let's say, Rob Kearney, who's probably got 70 caps. Jordan Murphy's probably got 60 caps, and Gervin Dempsey's
Dempsey.
probably got 80 caps.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of games that
I
those.
actually know the answer. Jordan Murphy has 74 caps and Gervin Dempsey has 82 caps.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, those lads have got so much experience that you knew when the ball was kicked, they were going to read it. You never got the impression when the ball was kicked into the backfield that Zebo was reading the play. Now, admittedly, he plays most of his rugby.
I
on
had to
the
say
wing.
he's a winger, and
Yeah. No, I
on the wing he can do less harm and more good if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So
But that's not how it worked out against England, though, is it? In the world, now, admittedly, it was only a friendly, but that's not the case. I think his problem is, I don't think it matters where he plays. If he's focused, he's good.
But
If he's slack-minded, he's not.
But you even
and that's the problem that he has.
think back to the match against Australia in the Aviva in the November series last year, or 2014. Ireland were, I think, 20-0 up, and he was very lackadaisical, and they got a turnover and ended up scoring up at the far end of the pitch.
Yeah.
Just from, as you say, from these moments of just switching off and lack of concentration. And at that level, at international level, you can't do that. Like, the game is so fast. Like, you hear them all saying it. There's a huge step up, even from Heineken Cup or European Cup matches to international level. Just the gap is so vast. That, It's not a place to be learning on the
You
job.
often see guys come off, like international fullbacks with dominant teams coming off, not having really touched the ball, but been knackered. Because
The
They
running
had
that
to run everywhere.
they
yeah.
just have to, they're always switched on. And I think that he switched on for 85 to 90% of the match.
Yeah, well, sometimes he's not switched on for the bits he needs to be switched
Yeah.
on for, and that's if you do one or two of them, yeah, you can cost your team.
It's like a goalkeeper. I mean, outfield players can make one mistake in every game and get away with it. If a goalkeeper makes one mistake, it's a goal.
Like a drummer.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Everybody can notice their mistake.
Yeah.
And well, one guy that really was switched on, and probably for the first time in a long time, was Johnny Sexton. He was
Oh, he completely dominated that
he
match.
was fantastic, you know. And
I mean, he was actually my man of the match. I thought just for his complete and utter both physical and mental domination of what was going on. You could see his attitude on the pitch, the way he was shouting, the way he was going into and taking contact. He was just dominating his opposite number.
yeah.
I'd throw Jack McGrath in along with
Well,
himself
he
and
was very,
Stander.
very good in
And Heaslip.
defence. But like one thing that say, obviously O'Connell and O'Driscoll are gone now, and now sort of the emphasis falls on the remaining senior players. Now Best is trying to captain the team and leading his set of forwards, but you could just see that Johnny was the captain of the backs, and just the way he was getting in the ref's face and having a go at Warburton, and Warburton kind of stepped away from it and didn't really get as involved
he
in much.
completely
Really intimidated
he
him.
intimidated him mentally, I think. Okay, I mean, some things did go in our favour. And we're talking about out halves, for example. It was very unfortunate, but it was as a result of great attitude from Henshaw that he kind of injured Bigger
Bigger
accidentally.
was injured already. He had
Yeah.
strapping on the outside of
Yeah,
his boot.
and then when Henshaw chased that ball and tackled Bigger, he rolled over. Now it was accidental, but it was as a result of real kind of he was going to make the tackle or he was going to win the ball, and it was that worked in our favour as well because Bigger's a great player. Priestland is not in that league at all.
He's a confidence player, and his confidence is not running high because he can't get a game for Bath. He was getting slagged. He was getting booed by Welsh fans a year ago. He's getting slagged playing for the Scarlets. He does, wherever he goes, he doesn't see, and he's that kind of a player. He needs to be on a confidence, and you could see he actually didn't have a bad game, but his first touch was a knock on to give us a scrum in midfield, which
he made about 3 or 4 mistakes
He
at the
did,
start,
yeah.
but then he kind of grew into the game.
He did.
But I suppose it's obviously very hard coming off the bench and been just
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Of
immediately
course.
into where everyone else has got up to speed. where-
especially
And a
if
game
you're
like
a
that.
confidence player.
And a game like that, which was really intense. I mean, that was really, really hard stuff out there. I mean, people say, even some pundits have been saying, this just showed this week's Six Nations just showed how poor it is in comparison to the Rugby Championship. I'd be very surprised if there was any game in the Rugby Championship that, for intensity, exceeded that match. Okay, they might have games that are played in a different manner because of whatever
Weather conditions.
But in terms of intensity, you're not going to get a game that's any more intense than that game.
I'd love to see Australia playing in February in Dublin and see how good they are. But then again, they played in November in Dublin
And they lost.
they won the year before. Anyway, in the other games, I didn't see anything that I would be shitting myself about.
No.
England stumbled past Scotland, and Scotland kind of shot themselves in the foot a bit as well.
How fit? Like you make the
Greg Laidlaw.
well, it was more Finn Russell. When he got the
Yeah,
intercept.
if he had a
But if you look and you kind of do
Passed.
a very similar
The hog.
incident in both games, when Sexton made the break, the first thing he does, he looks
look
up
around, yeah.
and he's aware of who's around him, of what defenders are coming to him, and more importantly, what teammates are in his vicinity. When Finn Russell got that ball, there was 75 or 80 metres in front of him.
And he kicked.
One defender was running back towards him, and there was I think it was Hogg was on his
Hogg,
left-hand
yeah,
side.
speedster on the
All you have to do
outside.
is
Yeah.
draw
Burner.
the man, and pass the ball, and it's guaranteed to try.
Under the posts
And he kicks the ball away, and not only did he kick it away, he kicked it into touch.
directly.
And that just says if you're relying on somebody with that lack of vision,
Yeah,
you ain't going to win anything.
In fairness, you're talking about Finn Russell is a very good, promising player, but you're comparing him to somebody like Johnny Sexton or even Dan Bigger. You're
Ian
talking
Ma-
about.
I guarantee you, Ian Madigan wouldn't have kicked that ball.
No, he wouldn't have done. No, he wouldn't have done. No, no.
Paddy Jackson wouldn't.
Ian Madigan probably would have thrown it back over his head and flicked and then run around and cut or something. But no, they wouldn't have. I don't
that was
think
Carlos. King Carlos might have done that.
I don't think Madigan would have done. I don't think Jackson would have kicked it either. And I don't think. But I certainly don't think that Johnny Sexton or Dan Bigger would have. No way. They would have made the right choice because they played it. Like you said, they played the game with their heads up.
So.
And with the other match now, the France-Italy match. Well, it was a humdinger,
It was all on.
Yeah.
It was all go.
Very exciting
You can't say it wasn't a spectacle.
to see Italy nearly winning a game against France in the Stade de France.
Yeah, in Brunel's last year as well. It was there for the taking.
But your friend
Well,
tried to drop goal.
But before that, he was involved in absolutely everything.
I'll tell you what.
I went through the
Hold on,
team.
can we get him to he praised CJ Stander earlier? Can we get a 2 out of 1? Can we?
I'll tell you one thing. The penalty wasn't a penalty, right? I don't think that was a penalty. The one that he was.
Agree.
Right, I don't think that was. But what really, he let the ball be taken out of his hands for a quick tap.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy. How many caps has he got? Is he 100 caps?
Maybe near enough.
116.
Right. That's if a guy did it in the J, you'd be really, really annoyed at him.
You would.
And that, to a certain extent, that's part of my problem with Brise, because I watch a lot of Stade Francais. They're my favourite French team, if you like. And he's a bit like Zebo actually. He just loses blocks of matches where he's like away with the fairies and he does stupid things.
Yeah. But I went through the team. They'd of the 15 starters, 12 play in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Of the starting of those 12, 2 of them don't even play Pro 12. They play in
Excellenza.
Excellenza, yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about fellas that have won, like Benetton haven't won a match this season.
Or a lot of last season either.
Probably for the last 10 seasons. And Zebre have won 4 matches, 2 of those being against Treviso.
Yeah.
So you put Parisi into that team with a bunch of other fellas who are fairly average,
One thing
who lose 95% of their matches, and they come within 2 points of winning the Stade
But
France.
one thing
There's
I'm going to
some
say
guy on
about
the team
I'd say
who's-
about France, about Italy, sorry. They've for the first time in, I think it's nearly over a decade, they started a Six Nations match with a home generated in every shape and form out half in Cana,
He was good.
and he actually looked good. You combine him with Garcia and Campagnaro as 10, 12, 13. There is actually
Might be onto something.
There is actually something to work with there. If you're not Conor O'Shea, who absolutely isn't coming in as Italian coach, no way. There's something there to work with, and then you add the experience of Parise and obviously that pack.
Yeah.
If you're coming into that team, you think, actually, I'm coming into a team with a lot of good young talent
bit of
and the
tweaking.
richest union in Europe. You could actually do something there, but it's a lot of work.
But they've tended to go for, like you were saying, but Australian ex-rugby league guys who have a grandfather from Rome or wherever. To
Like
come back.
Luke
But-
McLean with the Italian name.
But there's whatever about picking a winger from rugby league. There's no similarity in the standoff position in rugby.
Oh, sure. They picked. I mean, I was looking at the list of Italian out halves. Does anyone remember De Marigny?
Nope.
Came from South African rugby league. South African rugby league. I mean, that's like coming from Irish domestic soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well, there is a guy, I heard this, maybe getting this slightly wrong, but there's a guy on the Italian team who has never started a game of pro rugby that his team has won.
jeez.
Probably.
Like that's some stat to have to rely on a guy like that. Like where do you get your
Where's all your baggage?
yeah?
Although it wouldn't have been that unusual. There were guys who had entire international careers in Ireland during the 90s who never won an international match.
Yeah, but I don't think this was just international either.
But they were very good at the art of ale.
They were very good at the art of ale. Italians are good at the art of wine. No, I mean it could have. It was there for the taking. I mean he's been the thing that he's been mostly criticised for is that penalty, and I don't think that was a penalty.
But
I don't.
like
think
he was
that
involved in absolutely everything. He set up the try. Like he set up the drive for initially for the try.
Yeah.
He scored a try.
Mm-hmm.
He was involved with the penalty, as you mentioned, about the ball being ripped away from him. He was involved with the penalty.
The other penalty where it wasn't a penalty.
where it wasn't a penalty, where he was done for holding on.
I don't think it was a penalty to France either, by the way, or to Italy either.
No, it wasn't
I don't think it was a
high
penalty
tackle.
either way.
No.
He was done for not releasing the ball when he was held
was
in the
tackled,
tackle,
yeah.
but he wasn't held in the tackle.
Yeah.
He also claimed for a high tackle,
And
which
then
Yeah.
finally,
I don't
penalty
think was a
either way.
penalty either way.
finally,
He went for that dropper.
I think you see,
82 or 83 minutes.
you see,
into
I
the-
think that's another example of what I was saying earlier, where he's just losing. He's not focusing. He's not focusing.
but
because
no one else was, Dave.
Haimona was 3 feet.
No.
I don't mean metaphorically. Haimona was 3 feet away from him. If you watch the coverage again, Haimona has to run in front of him to run the blocking line that you would expect the loose
But
forward
he
to
wasn't
run.
prepared to take the kick.
Well, he didn't get the chance.
Yeah.
It was 3 minutes of it. Like, he's the out half. He should have called. For it.
He got into the pocket, Jay. He was in the pocket at least 4 phases before the actual option.
Huh?
And look, it happened anyway. But I just think he should have hit that ball up. If you were thinking about it, he should have hit that ball up one more time, because all the Italians, all the French who'd been coming rushing out, would have been offside.
Mm.
You know,
Anyway,
Anyway, it was a good game.
it was it was really
was
Because
entertaining.
I thought
enjoyable.
that was going to be
It was
like
enjoyable.
Yeah.
a 30 pointer
Well, like, you
to France.
It's funny enough, we were saying last week, I think it was you said, Jake, at the begin, you said, or no, maybe it was you, after the first round of matches, half the teams can't win the Grand Slam.
yeah.
And
It's
now
a little bit more than
now
that.
it's a little more than that. And, you know, some of the teams that won, I don't think Italy are going to be winning any Grand Slams, or not, sorry, Italy, France are going to be
No.
winning any Grand Slams this year.
So that leaves England as the only credible Grand Slam.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to win a Grand Slam.
But it's all about
They have
the
it set up.
championships really than the Grand Slams. now,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah, it is, yeah.
England have it set up though. We were saying this earlier that they've got Ireland and Wales at home, who, let's face it, are probably their biggest challengers. And they've France in the last round. So if they have won all their matches, they're going to France chasing a Grand Slam.
Well, the big surprise of the weekend, which we've forgotten to mention, was that Dylan Hartley didn't get sent off.
Mm.
But, like, to carry on what you're saying, England have Wales in Twickenham.
Yeah.
Now, that is going to be a huge grudge match. Huge after the World Cup.
Oh yeah.
Huge. I mean, that's going to be like England versus Germany in soccer, or it's going
Or
to be
Argentina.
Yeah, or Argentina. It's going to be massive. And the thing is, this is going to put serious stress on the captain's temperament.
Mm.
It really is.
I'm
And that's
looking.
going to be a huge factor.
I'm looking forward to that. If we can manage to beat France and keep things rolling, if we can also manage to beat England, amazing. But whichever way that goes, that game, England and Wales, is going to be, whether it's a game, a straight shootout for the championship, or whether it's we're
Grand
looking
Slam
for
game, or-
well, it could be a Grand Slam game, or it could also be we're looking for England to beat Wales because we've already beaten England. That's another
Don the Red
possibility.
Rose, folks. Don the Red Rose.
So that game it's in the second last week, and it's gonna be a bit of a humdinger, no matter what is riding on it. In fact, so let's just win the next two
It's
games.
going to be Hartley is going to be a key figure in that. I think he is, because I think he's going to be so determined not to get himself sent off and not to lose the run of himself. It could. I
Do you
believe.
think it would suppress his performance?
I think it's going to inhibit his game, and I think that gives Wales, or anyone, but in that game, I think it gives Wales.
Well, maybe he'll already be banned by now. Who knows?
Murray Best got so far under his skin.
Who knows? It's happened.
Well, anyway, moving forward to next week's games, we've played France, but they haven't beaten us since 2011. Like, it's probably one of our
It's mad when you
longest.
think about that,
It's
isn't
probably
it?
well, there was 2 draws in there now, in
Mhm.
France. But like, it's probably the longest run of matches
But like,
that haven't been defeated by France.
if you grew up watching rugby in the 70s and 80s and 90s, like we all did, some in the 70s and some in the 80s and 90s. If you grew up watching rugby in the 70s and 80s, and 90s, the idea that Ireland could go 5 years without losing to France would be, quite frankly, ridiculous. I mean, it wouldn't be conceivable that fortunes could turn over so sharply, but they have. I mean, we're looking now at a situation where we're looking to play France, okay, with a short recovery time, but with a fuller deck to select from. And I would say, whatever people are talking about, whether we would have beaten Wales, people would be disappointed maybe if we don't beat France, even though it's in France.
Yeah, well, we shall see.
But I suppose it goes back to sort of the European matches, doesn't it?
Lost
that,
the fear.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, going back to the 70s, like, the only time an Irish team would play a French team was in the Six Nations, so
International,
once
yeah.
a year. You know what I mean? And now, like, there's European matches every season, and all 4 provinces play French teams. You know, I remember when Leinster won against Clermont or Montferrand as they were, and it was our first away win back in, I think it was 02 or 3. You know, it was a huge thing. It was a monkey off the back. Now we go to France, and okay, there are going to be some matches we're going to win, some we're going to lose some, but you don't go there kind of thinking, geez, we're going to beat by 50 points.
No, I mean, when I was, we say 15, the names of clubs like Bègle Bordeaux or Pau or Biarritz or Castres were evocative names, and to a certain extent they still are. But the mystery's gone. Their players don't appear out of nowhere once a year for 80 minutes to wreak havoc and then disappear again for another 12 months. That just doesn't happen. We see them every week. We see them on Top 14 television live. We see them in Europe, and we see them we see their great skills, but we also see their deficiencies. And this French team has serious deficiencies. It's compared to I hesitate to use the phrase about a team about a region that includes Ireland, but compared to a Hiberno Anglo-Saxon team, they're underfit and underprepared.
Possibly, but you'd have to say that we're back to the old style France now under Guy Novès. He's not there long enough, maybe, but it's one of these they could turn. They could have a shit defence and still score a load of tries against us. You just never know. I wouldn't be writing them out. They're harder to write off, like under Sant-André and previous coaches, where they've kind of gone more Anglo-Saxon in their style. They've been easier to predict, and it was just a big pack. They move them around, tire them out, and you have a chance of winning. Whereas now they have that new winger back from Sevens. They've got all these fancy players that can he did lovely little finish there.
Lovely little mover.
But they could just do something. I mean, once they get their tails up what they're like, and they throw that ball around and they're in your face, and so they're a bit more worrying that way. However, if you play them 10 times, you probably win more.
It's interesting to hear
Barry
Jackman's kind of opinions on it.
Yeah,
like
he's
kind
opinion
of
of them at all, does he?
No, he doesn't. But he's kind of like he's obviously works over there and hears all of the inside track. But it's very interesting to hear him even talking about the politics of it. That Novès was saying, I'd go for a coach that's French Rugby Federation approved or appointed. Yeah. Whereas Gauthier wanted to bring in his own, maybe a South African or a New Zealander.
Well, he was seen as the LNR candidate, whereas Guy Novès is seen as the FFR. The union. One's the union and one's the. That's the league. That's the way it seems to be portrayed over there.
Novès would have been 20 years as Toulouse coach. I would have thought he would have been a league man.
You see, the thing is, he knew how, because of that experience, he knew how to play the game. He knew he could carry. He knew how to get on the right side of both sides. The question is, did the compromises that had to be made to get them there, have they damaged French rugby? Bernard Jackman would certainly say so. You'd kind of have to agree with them. I mean, bringing in guys who are inexperienced in coaching, in senior coaching roles, whatever about Leinster doing it, France doing it, it's completely another thing again.
But nothing like bringing in their defence coach isn't a defence coach; he's a skills coach. Now, do you know what I mean? Like, he's still obviously, presumably, a very good coach, but
they're French. It's the way they do things. Sometimes they're right.
Well, that's not how it works anymore, though. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can't break the opponent's line with all who are really well organised. If you're French, if that French team of the 70s came up against the Irish team now, we'd murder them, right? I mean, okay, they're 80. But they get murdered because they just wouldn't have that organisation. They wouldn't get a line break against us. They're not used to the the French.
The lack of space that kills them.
It's the lack of space that killed them, and that French team now is in a similar way. On the other hand, they don't have the ability to close down opposition. They couldn't do it against a rookie out half. I mean, he looked as good as anything the France had. I mean, and Johnny Sexton is not a rookie out half. Plus, he's got the narc with them.
Yeah, well, I do feel confident, a lot more confident going into this game than I did, even though we're away and we were home this week. However, there's a chance of us getting, last game syndrome.
Yeah.
The Argentina game was hanging over this game for so many months, and that was colouring everybody's opinion, and people were giving out about Schmidt based on the fact that he kept it tight.
Do you know there was 9 changes from the start in 15?
From that game, even, and that was a game where we were missing 6 people from the previous game.
It's only less than 4 months
That's a 15-man turnover.
Yeah. It's only less than 4 months ago that match occurred.
But, and here's something, right, that last week I was saying about Stuart McCluskey coming in, moving your man to full-back, and before the game when Rob Kearney was out, I was looking at it going, well, yeah, it makes sense now to put that guy to full-back. If you look at it in retrospect, and if you look at the way Schmidt played it, Jared Payne had a great game at 13. He's solid, the defensive line the whole lot, and he did quite a bit going forward as well. But B, if you're building something like with so many players missing, Joe Schmidt needed to keep. Remember we were saying last season or during the World Cup where he had this centre partnership picked out, and he wanted to give them as much game time as he could before the World Cup.
Just before you go too far down the road, just because this will feed into it, Dara Faulkner asks on Facebook, he says, although Henshaw and Payne have proved to be an effective centre partnership in defence, is it fair to say that the presence of 2 natural fullbacks in the midfield is hindering our ability to attack the wide channels effectively? And if so, should Joe consider selecting McCloskey or Ringrose or both next week?
I don't think it's the week for it. I mean, I was kind of crying out for McCluskey to get a game this week, the week that's just gone. But having seen that game and having seen how we performed, I really think that persevering with the centre combination with so many other changes going on, enforced changes, I don't think it's the time to do it. I think McCluskey is probably, because he's a bigger physical guy than Ringrose is, he's a few years older, I think he should get a break first, and yes, alongside probably Henshaw, but the Italy game is the time to do that rather than France in Paris or England in Twickenham.
The other side of that is I have a feeling that the reason why Leinster or why Ireland didn't go as wide as maybe some people want them to go is nothing to do with the selection of personnel, it's to do with the selection of tactics.
There was an evolution though on from the World Cup. We are a little bit more.
Ireland play differently depending on who we play against. Sometimes we do. Look, Leinster never went wide. If you even when Joe Schmidt was in his pomp, even in 2012 when we won the Heineken Cup, pulling away from
they sucked people in
from Ulster. You look how we broke them down. We broke them down through the middle. Yeah. That's how we did it, and that's how Joe Schmidt. Teams seek advantage at where he thinks the opposition have a weak point. Now, if that involves going very wide very early, then that's what you do. Otherwise, you play to your strengths. And our strengths are really, really aggressive ball carrying at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I agree, and I think that whatever weapons he selects for his next onslaught on the French team are going to be
pistols he chooses for the duel.
Pistols he chooses for the duel are probably going to be the most effective ones. But I don't think it's now the time that, especially that we've won or not won. We've won that draw that we got last week
after beating Wales 16-0.
After beating Wales 16-0. I don't think it's time to mess about because we've so many other players.
Well, we thought we were probably going to lose. Well, I think you might have thought we were going to win, Dave, but a lot of people
we were going to lose. Yeah,
I thought a lot of people thought we were going to lose, and to kind of come out of the match with a draw, but to played. Like, sometimes you draw a game and you kind of go.
Draw's like kissing your sister, mate.
That was actually.
Nobody's happy.
Well, I don't
know. There was an awful lot of Munster players in the team.
I was very happy with that result. I didn't think, and seeing that we picked, there were so many people injured. Like a lot of people have, either retired or they're out injured, or even whatever about injuries at the start of the campaign. When you're in camp and all of a sudden
lose them, yeah.
Two pretty nailed on starters, Carney and O'Brien, pull out the week of the game.
Luke Fitzgerald the week before, yeah.
I mean, I heard him interviewed. He said he reckoned he was going to be on the bench, so he would have been from the 23. He was obviously got injured as well. So when you're kind of disrupted like that, and then you're bringing in, and like to still sort of like C.J. Sandler was making his debut. Then you have Tommy O'Donnell has probably less than 10 caps. You know, the two centres probably only have 10 caps between them. Do you know what I
And
mean?
very few together.
Yeah,
And your fullback is inexperienced as
Yeah.
well. I mean, there's
so there's a lot of inexperience.
Is it time to give Tyg Furlong a start ahead of Nathan White
That
after this
was
week?
where I wanted to lead on to. Like you mentioned, Dave, you know, what pistols he's going to choose. What pistols is he going to choose in the entire team? Like, is he going to go for... Will Sean O'Brien come back in? Who will he replace? Will he... You know, there was talk last week that he was going to pick Reece Ruddock and O'Brien and have Stander on the bench. Can you drop him now after that performance?
Pretty difficult.
I don't know. I think Joe can. I don't think he'd even think twice about it if he thought it was the right thing to do. But I don't think he will, because I don't think he will think it's the right thing to do.
No, I agree.
I think that the big issue is that France's best player is Slimani. He's their best player. A lot of what they do is based around what he provides, which is a stable platform. You take that away from France, you know, they're under, because whatever about the glorious running lines of their beautiful backs, they have to have the ball to do it. Otherwise, they're just a bunch of lads running around the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, if you can take, you have to pick who's the best prop to take his legs from under him, and it's Marty Moore, and he's not available. So
Marty Moore will be on the far side of the scrum. So
sorry.
Jack McGrath. I was about to say.
Sorry, what was I saying? It's Keane Healy, but he's not available.
Well, Jack McGrath, I would see as being ahead of Keane Healy now. I have to say, Keane Healy will have to fight tooth and nail to get back.
I will,
in
but I still think that
McGrath is an absolute. And who would have said that 2 years ago?
Do you remember there was one? Remember
He would have been laughed out of court.
Heaslip made a great turnover, and he picked up the ball, kind of squirted out the side, and he picked
That's
up
right,
the ball. He went to deck, and then the ball came out of the back of the ruck, and McGrath, but he was clearly exhausted. He put his hands on the ball as if he was about to playing scrum half, and then they came right through on top of him,
bowled
and
him over.
He seemed to have no energy even trying to get the ball, you know, to
He
make.
did play 80 though, which is rare for a prop.
That's what I'm saying. That he looked to be absolutely exhausted at that point. Whereas if you had, it doesn't matter which one starts, if you've got two great loose heads, that one can replace the other with any sign of fatigue. Because clearly, you know what I mean? How odd is it that a prop plays 80 minutes in this day and age?
Do you think he doesn't trust Cronin?
Absolutely doesn't.
I think
He'd play him when he has to.
I think he play. Yeah, I think he doesn't trust
Only
him, but I
in
think
total necessity.
he might change his mind after another week looking at him.
Maybe
You
so.
know?
Maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have had huge exposure to him.
Well, one thing for sure, Healy and Ross are not in the Ireland squad.
No.
They're in the Leinster squad
Yeah.
this week, which we'll probably talk about later. But
Well, they were in the Leinster
that'll
squad.
tee them up.
They were training with Leinster yesterday, which didn't read a lot into, because Ireland weren't training yesterday, and they do need to be training. But Gervin Dempsey today at his presser said that they haven't been called up, so that's.
Yeah, well, I'd say they're hoping they'll trundle on against England, but like Mike Ross, you couldn't put Mike Ross. He always needs games to get up to steam. Plus, he's had a hamstring injury, I think. So it's not as if
you have to play that back in.
it's not as if he's been able to run around to keep himself in shape, you know. And he's a guy who needs to be kept in
A
shape.
game against Zebre would actually be good for him, because it'd be
It's his only game in town.
It'd be stout enough test in the scrums, because I mean, an Italian scrum is still an Italian scrum. It's still a good scrum, but it wouldn't be too demanding outside of that, and it'd be a good game for him to run his way back in. But yeah, I mean, does he start Furlong or does he start White again? Does he give White a chance of redemption? I don't know if White was as bad as
He's a decent enough
it
prop.
came out. I think that what happened was that the picture that the Irish scrum presented to the referee wasn't a picture that the ref wanted to see.
That's it, yeah.
And if that happens, there's very little you can do about
Kept
it.
under pressure though, Dave. You know?
He did lose his bind for that one. I was on the far side of the field.
Of the
I
dry one.
couldn't see it, and
Yeah.
the whole scrum exploded as soon as his arm came off. But the way I'm looking at White is he's not bad around the park, and he's kind of okay in the scrum, based just on that showing. I mean, not based on any of his other games. Furlong might be a little bit inexperienced in the scrum, but is undoubtedly better around the park. So how much are you going to lose to, well, unfortunately it's Eddie Benarous. So, you know, he'd probably take either of them to the woodshed, as Eddie
I'd say
as
he'll
O'Sullivan would
go
say.
with White again, and but bring on Furlong a bit earlier.
Bit earlier, yeah. Well, it's the one thing, the only thing I'd worry about Furlong is he's a serious physical specimen. He's got great hands. He's great around the park. He's got a good engine. He's good at pretty much everything. But the scrum is something that you need experience at international level, and it's like he's fine as long as you're scrummaging straight against him. You're not doing any shady shit, but like every bloody international scrum
He hasn't
is
learned,
full of
he hasn't
shady
learned
shit,
the shady shit yet.
and he hasn't enough experience at shady shit. So that's the only reason I wouldn't, or I would think about not
The only
sticking
changes
him on.
I can see are either
On
injury.
balance.
Well, Earls is probably
Well,
out, right? You got to say. He's
The only changes I can see are either injury influenced, whether that's unwinding from injuries from the week before, or as a result of injuries from the game against Wales. So I can see Sean coming back, I can see Rob coming back, I can see Earls dropping out. The question is who's going to replace him on the wing.
Will Dave Carney come in, or will Zebo slide over?
Well, you could have Carney and Zebo. You could have,
It might be
Andrew Trimble is a real, and Dave Carney are both real Joe Schmidt type wingers.
Mm-hmm.
They do all the hard work, but you could really see, and not just that ball where you had to run back, but you could really see that Trimble's pace is gone. He had a lot of pace.
He's been around a long time. Like
He played in the World Cup in 2007.
I think
you know.
his power is more
I-
important to Schmidt than
9
Pace.
years ago.
I was in Paris in 06 when it was a crazy match that.
Oh yeah, the match.
They got off to like a 35-point lead, and then Ireland
came back,
back
yeah.
But he played in that game. He scored in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think his power is more important to Schmidt in this, because I think that one area that Joe Schmidt would want to attack is the French back three,
Oh yeah, undoubtedly.
and how you want to
That'll
attack them is aerially.
be- It'll be raining balls on those guys. Yeah.
But I mean, and people would say, "Oh, that's Joe Schmidt being conservative," right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It's horses for courses. Isn't it?
how else would you? What else would you do? I mean, have you seen them play?
Yeah.
But
You just
you've
bomb
got
after bomb down on
that
top
was
of
one,
them.
that was one tactic that I was so surprised, especially considering the conditions on Sunday in Dublin. There was very little kicking.
Mm.
But maybe each coach in Gatland was trying to outsmart and outfox
I'd say-
Schmidt and vice versa.
I'd say there would if Anscombe had started, there would have been a
There
lot
was
more kicking.
yeah.
But once Williams came onto that pitch, I mean, Williams is superb. He's a superb fullback. I mean,
I don't
whatever
know.
about him as an opponent, he's a super footballer. You know,
I don't know what the I don't know what your man James is it on one wing is like under the high ball, but George North is nothing special under the high ball.
no.
And he's a bit of an oil tanker as well. He gets the ball in behind him, so
That's very little. I just was surprised. That,
Yeah.
Because I thought it was going to be when I saw the weather conditions and
Mhm.
I thought it was going to go up. But
Liam Williams though is a good position, a very good fullback. He's
he
tough,
shuts down a lot. I mean, if you
tough little young
like
fella
you're
as
talking
well.
about, you're talking about Sexton playing with his head up. He'll have taken the ball and he might have been thinking kick, and you'll see Williams and you go, no.
Can take some amount of punishment for a skinny bloke.
Mm.
Really can.
you can dish it out as well.
Yeah, you can dish
He-
out the
I
cheap
remember
stuff
a couple of years
occasionally,
ago, I think we scored a try and he kind of slid in with the
on
knees.
top of them.
No,
yeah.
he is a snide. I mean, that's
I like him, I have to say, as a player.
As a player, yeah, as a person,
I
I'd
like him. Well, I don't know him as a person, so hey.
He wants to get to know you, though. John. So anyway, moving aside from the international games, we've got the Pro 12 is back this weekend as well. Well, just last week actually, Ulster had a
Get out of jail free card.
against the Dragons. They Jackson hit the crossbar, but he had another go at it then in the last.
3 minutes from time,
yeah.
I think. The Dragons would have been a heroic
You were nearly
victory.
convinced that Dragons had won that match. Do you remember?
I was looking at it on Twitter or
On
on
CFAX.
CFAX, yeah, and when I was at the under-20s game, and I was surprised that they come back into it. I thought,
It was pushed them up the ladder to first,
yeah, they're top of the league.
pushed us down to fourth.
Mm.
So we take on Zebre as
We need the
kind of
5
touched.
points.
We do, and it's probably a game that we should get 5. We're
Yeah.
saying get 4 anyway.
Oh, 5, we need 5.
We need 5 from
We
this
do
game.
need 5, but we probably.
To hell with 4.
Do you know they've never beaten us in the RDS?
Or anywhere, I don't think, have they?
I thought they might have beaten us one season.
I don't think they did.
No.
Treviso did.
Treviso beat us. I don't think.
Don't think-
No, I don't think.
I don't think Zebre did. Anyway, we could be wrong. This is from memory here.
No, I don't think they did. I think they got a draw against us.
Did they?
Yeah, pretty sure they did. Anyway, look, we should be getting 5 points against them. I mean, as bad and all as we're hit for the international matches,
They're
I mean
hit
they're
worse.
hit even worse
Yeah.
because they have a much lower base in terms of talent.
And also, there's only 2 Italian teams.
Yeah.
I know a lot of their players come from France, but from the French league. But
You'd be surprised. There was only, as I said, there was only 3 Parisi, And there was a guy plays for Wasps and a guy plays for Exeter in the starting 15.
Yeah, Campagnaro plays for Exeter, and yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Surprising, yeah.
Yeah.
So that means both Italian teams are going to be hit for 6 with players out for international. But yeah, it's a huge opportunity for us. And there's a few other interesting games going on. Ulster have Glasgow, which you'd have to say Ulster are going to win because Glasgow are decimated again. The old 2 teams, and the main one is Glasgow. Ulster have a few players going spare.
Yeah. A few
Not
guys
literally.
in key positions.
So we've also got Munster playing the Ospreys, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, is that home or away?
Munster at home.
At home. Well, there's another one you'd have to think will go with the home team. So that'll catapult those teams up the league, whereas Ospreys and Glasgow are in 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
Well, can't catapult Ulster up the league because they're already on top
But
of it.
there's kind of a gap starting to appear. I mean, and particularly if Munster beat Ospreys. Ospreys are on 30 points.
Well, that is
Munster
always
are
a
on
game
36.
that operates kind of a
It's on its own,
In its
under
own
set of rules.
its own steam. So it is. I mean, Munster are lacking a lot of. They might be lacking a huge amount in terms of numbers, but the guys they're missing
Big
are
quality.
absolutely key guys. I mean, they're missing. They're gonna
Stander,
be, we can
Murray,
assume they're going to be missing Cronin.
Earls,
They're going to be
Cronin,
missing Stander, Murray, like you say, Earls, Zebo,
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell, Ryan.
Yeah,
Those are big
that's
guys
a lot
for
of
them.
guys.
Those
yeah.
are big and big guys for them, important guys. So I mean, that's an issue for them as well.
We shall see.
And Connacht play the Dragons on Thursday.
Yeah, that's a funny one as well. That game and our game are not televised, as far as I know.
But the Connacht beat Dragons over in Rodney Parade last season.
Well, they've got to go back and do it all over again. Neither team are losing a huge amount. Connacht probably lose more, actually. They've got Henshaw, White, Marmion, and have they another one?
Delan.
Yeah.
He might be released back though.
That's like, obviously we all got the emails today in relation to renewing of our season tickets. Wouldn't it be good timing now from the marketing point of view of those trying to flog those tickets if
Fire
Leinster
in a big
maybe
signing or two.
announced
Milner Scudder. Milner Scudder.
CJ Sander.
God, I'd love to take him away from him.
No.
Well, you two boys, you headed along to Donnybrook last Wednesday to look at the under-20s.
Yeah,
Friday.
and we stayed there and camped there for 2 nights until Friday night when the match was on.
Sorry, Friday. I didn't know I said Wednesday. Sorry.
Yeah, everyone was really excited about this because it was the biggest pack anyone can ever think of ever playing for the Irish under-20s. And then the Welsh pack came out onto the pitch.
They're
And
number
they were
5,
bigger.
Jason. I can't express how big their number 5. His name is Beard. By Jesus Christ, he can only just about grow one, but he must be about 6'8".
All the excitement about James Ryan.
Yeah.
James Ryan looked
Tiny
like
little
a
fella compared to
kid
Really?
beside
Yeah,
him. I'd say they're about the same height, but your man would,
just looks huge.
50% bigger than
Yeah.
him, just enormous. And apparently, I remember saying last week here that the thing about the under-20s is you never know what the opposition are going to be like because it's a different team every year. So apparently this is the best Welsh team I've heard since that have been playing under-20s for a while. So I suppose it's no humiliation to be beaten by 9 points by them, but at times in the game it looked like it was more than 9 points, and at other times we nearly got
It
back
did,
on
but I
it.
thought they was going to try at the end. I kind of
Put a bad look on it.
We did some. I mean, a lot of the things. I mean, there's guys out there. There was guys playing who, on instinct, were really good rugby players. If they didn't have to think about it, made a number of breaks up the pitch based on really quick offloading, really fast. Pass. But the moment they had to kind of apply intellect to the process, the wrong choice was made, or a stupid decision was made, and it all broke down. And that was disappointing. I mean, Rugby is played up above the neck as well as below it, kind of thing, and we weren't able to do that. That's the most disappointing thing for me, was that the team didn't look to have the intellectual wherewithal to break Wales down.
Yeah.
The referee, wouldn't say cost the game. I thought Wales were better value for their win, but what they did,
The yellow card.
and there was no way that was a penalty. Like not even a yellow card. It wasn't even a penalty. He stood his ground. He didn't move his backside out to take him out. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, a Munster guy got sin binned because he was pushed into, like, the referees are
Well,
just the referees are just deciding games, and
At the time-
they should be just there to
Well,
ref
in
it.
fairness, that wasn't the referee that decided the game.
Well, look, it was
the
TMO then.
Because we couldn't see what happened at the time, because obviously you're following play when you're watching,
Yeah.
and there was no big screen. So to a certain extent, when you're there, you kind of have to take the referee or whatever happens on faith. And then I came home and I watched it again, and it was never,
No.
ever.
nothing
It
in it.
wasn't even a penalty.
And
I mean, not even a penalty, not
Nothing in it.
nowhere near.
And they scored 10 points while he
While
was
he was
off
off,
in
yeah.
the stands,
And won by 9.
and won by 9. But look, I think Wales were a better team.
I think Wales were the better team, and I think
But
they
still,
deserved to win.
It
But
did kind
yeah.
of, it certainly was a very influential.
It was it was a big change.
One result that was quite noteworthy was Scotland under 20s beat England under 20s. Normally, the
Yeah.
English under 20s are juggernauts. And I think the Welsh team is big. Normally, though, like every season, the English pack is getting bigger. But they were beaten by Scotland.
Yeah, I didn't see
You
or
must have
hear
taken them out
anything
on the
about
Royal
it.
Mile or something for a few,
They got the Calcutta Cup.
hit a few clubs, played a few bangers. Well, hey, boy, oi.
Gavin Hastings was playing. Anyway, we actually had another question in, which is
So just to wrap up the games that aren't international games, the women, Irish women,
Yes.
had a really good win on
Huge crowd there.
Oh, was
that
that
Yeah,
that?
big
3,000
crowd.
or 4,000. That was very good.
I went for the 3 in a row. I went 3 days rugby in a row. See, so 3 international
You're
matches.
sleeping rough now. Your wife's kicked you out, John. Has
Well, she actually came with me to the women's game, so There you go.
The thing about it is, I mean, that's a really good rugby team. That Irish women's
Oh,
team.
yeah.
It's a really good rugby team. It's not a good team for women.
and they lost.
It's a really good rugby team.
They lost people to the sevens, but crucially, they were I'd say they were all sevens teams are mostly backs and back rowers.
Mhm.
The tight 5 that team has and the back row are just, that pack is awesome. It really is, and saw it up close and personal. They were really getting It was just like the way the Welsh team, the Welsh under-20s team, looked more committed and dedicated, and
Bigger.
well, bigger, yeah. But the Irish women's team just their mindset just looks. They're
It was. I was going to say men against boys. It was women against girls.
women against girls.
No, I mean it was. You can see. I mean, you look at Sophie Spence, and the Welsh had nothing that could stop her.
But
I mean,
she's a juggernaut.
you look at somebody like Niamh Briggs. Niamh Briggs has an absolute Beaufort's gun of a boot.
Yeah,
I mean, it's ridiculous how far she can kick a ball.
yes, she's great.
I mean, and Wales didn't have anything that could compete with the fact that Ireland, because of that, various different things, only ever played the game in a space 30 metres out from the Welsh try line. There was nothing they could do to stop it.
Lovely individual try by Mrs. Naupu as
Yeah,
well.
I saw that.
Her
Lovely try,
husband
yeah.
was sitting directly behind me. Actually, he was.
Oh, I'd
very
say you got up and you
restrained.
cheered and clapped for that once he did.
I'm sure he was very
Well,
good.
actually, I hadn't realised it was him sitting behind me until after she scored the try.
Mm.
But great performance. I'm looking forward to them thrashing England at some point during the championship, because presumably England have lost a lot of players to sevens as well. So we'll see how that pans out for both teams.
A few years ago, I think that they dropped, or not dropped, but they
Made a conscious decision.
to
England, yeah.
concentrate on the sevens rather than 15s for that
Yeah.
for the 16. It seems a bit strange that
It was coming up to the Commonwealth. It was either
Commonwealth Games.
Yeah,
I think,
Commonwealth
and
Games.
this time
and
it's
it
the
was-
Olympics,
yeah,
which
so
is the big one.
Commonwealth Games, and it was been held. The Commonwealth Games were in
Edinburgh.
Glasgow, Edinburgh. So
Yeah.
they had,
Yeah.
they had to.
well, one I suppose bit of news.
So you had a question, didn't
Oh,
you?
sorry, John.
Yeah, no, I got a question in here from Miriam, which is
Different Miriam.
not your Miriam, a Miriam, one of at least 4 Leinster Miriams that I know, and it says, is 40 metres off 23 carries better than 40 metres off 14? I would have thought it was the other way around. If one player can make 40 off 14, should we not expect the other player to make at least 70 of his 23? And I suppose what this illustrates
Highlights.
or highlights is how you can't take stats in isolation, because one full back gets the ball in space and he's made 1,000,000 metres without breaking a sweat, whereas your CJ Stander, your Jamie Heaslip might have to make 23 carries just to just to still. So it's not necessarily relevant to my mind anyway. It's not necessarily relevant how many meters you make off how many carries. What's relevant is where you got the ball and how many guys were standing in front of you trying to knock you down when you got it.
And how you got it back to your own team.
And did you get it back to your own team afterwards?
It kind of ties back into what we were saying
set up?
a couple of weeks ago when we went a bit off topic, and I was talking about the Southampton Academy.
We went off topic.
Yeah, I know.
Hold on a
believe it or
minute.
not.
What?
If you take any one approach, be it a stats based or just a purely a visual interpretation based approach in isolation,
You're missing.
you're going to miss out on the advantage of the other. So the beautiful word you use, Jason. You have to take a holistic approach.
Yes, well done, Jason. Must have been looking that one up for a week, were you? Yeah. So there you go.
One bit of news that I suppose was flagged after the World Cup. What O'Connell was stepping away from the international team, but today, unfortunately, he had to announce his retirement immediately from all rugby because he just his hammer never really got a chance to recover, get a chance to tug out for too long. But we spoke about it at the time, but he was just an absolute brilliant player.
What a man. I'm just in awe of the guy as a human being. Never mind if you never even played rugby, but as soon as he was Ireland's captain and top forward for so many seasons, he's just. You would have liked to see him go out with a bit of sun on his back and have a dream end to his career, winning something with Toulon. Well, maybe not winning, so losing in the final to Leinster next season. But it wasn't to be, and he better off to be able to run around with his kids, of which he has a few at this stage, than to have to be pushed around by his wife.
Everyone gets pushed around by their wife. It doesn't make a difference one way or another.
I meant in a wheelchair. So I'm glad to see him. I'm glad to see him get out of rugby with his health. But sorry to see that he couldn't go out.
I suppose it shows why
in
gingers
glory.
shouldn't really be drowned at birth, despite the best medical evidence.
But he didn't. He wants to go.
My
back
father's a ginger, Dave. I'm going to tell him now.
He wants to go back into coaching.
Well, I think that if he's going to do it, I think his best bet to do it is not to come home. I don't think it's always the best idea. I think Rog is the best idea. I think Birch is the best idea. I think if he's going to, what is anyone in Irish rugby going to teach him? Unless he's not going to go in at the top.
Plus, if he's going to be reverential to him, if he says boo, they're all going, okay, Polly, yeah, sure.
Learn from something you haven't. That's why he went. Part of it, obviously the money was an issue, but one of the reasons why he would have gone to France in the first place was to have done something new. So whether it's France, whether it's England, I don't think. I'm sure at some stage he wants to be Munster head coach.
What will he do?
I'd be surprised
though?
if he didn't. So.
Does he want to get into coaching? Is it
well
flagged?
Yeah. So start off.
Get his handicap down and go into coaching.
Start off as a unit coach, a unit forward coach, and progress your way up. But don't do it in Ireland because if he gets a job as a head coach as a forwards coach in Munster, there's always going to be that. Oh, when's Paulie going to take over? When's Paulie going to take over? And that's not fair on either him or whoever's ahead of him. So
forwards coach of the Queensland Reds. That'll do.
Do it out of sight. Yeah, do it out of sight.
But see, the thing is, he has the reputation. I heard a tribute by Martin Williams today.
He's not going to have too many problems getting a job.
No, he won't. But he's held in such regard. Martin Williams got over 100 caps for Wales.
Another
he's got 2 jerseys on his.
They're all coming out of that. You see, it's a plot.
They're backing each other up now.
It's a conspiracy. Where's the X-Files when you need them?
He's got two jerseys on his. Richie McCaw and Paul O'Connell. You know what I mean? If you're up there in that sort of company.
Apparently Paul Tito was very effusive about him as well. But no, that's the level he's at. He's at the level of the Brian O'Driscoll, the Ronan O'Gara, the Richie McCaw, that's the level he's operating at. But for his future reputation, don't come home to Ireland until
you've paid your dues in the coaching.
And then you come home and take over a job and continue building the legacy.
Exactly. Well, anyway, boys, thanks a million. And thanks again for watching. Cheers.